let's go into space now, and some more exciting stuff that's happening here with three different countries having launched probes to explore Mars. I believe one already arrived apparently, and two more were on their way or
Yep.
about to be there soon, from the UAE, China, and the US, all with presumably maybe similar missions, but obviously doing it their own way with their own thing and their own equipment. It just really reinforces that there's a real push to really start exploring again. That hasn't been there for a while. Outside of the usual probes that get flung out into space and go into orbit around planets, etc.
Well, that's right. There's already a number of orbiters around Mars. The UAE is actually just an orbiter, so that'll go mapping Mars's weather. But both the Chinese and the American missions will launch rovers onto the surface, which is always exciting. Must be getting crowded down there now. But, I think last year the Earth got as close to Mars as it ever gets. It does that every couple of years, or 2.5 years, I think it is. So all of these missions took advantage of that. It means it's only 6 or 7 months journey, and the probes can rendezvous with Mars. So, yes, it'll bring back more knowledge. It'll, help us with our mission planning and our operations and strategies for visiting Mars. And ultimately, while we'll have rovers on the surface looking around for microbes, signs of life, that sort of thing, at the end of the day, it's also paving the way for manned missions to the surface of the planet.
Absolutely. I did enjoy, as a slight tidbit to this, the US mission had some sort of helicopter attached to it, apparently, that could take off and go around the place. I guess more drone-like, perhaps.
I'd like to know more about this because I couldn't find much on it myself, and it's quite interesting because the Martian atmosphere is only 1,000th of the Earth. So it's going to have some pretty interesting, but also the gravity is obviously 1/4, but it'd be quite interesting, or 1/3. It'd be quite interesting to see how this thing flies in low gravity with low atmosphere.
Well, I mean, if we can, if they can get something flying around out there, I guess that'll be very useful in terms of study as well, because they've obviously got the rovers going around on the ground, but perhaps that could introduce an element of being able to transport from one location to another much easier, to be able, rather than having to always pinpoint the location they want to study right from the very beginning.
Well, as we know, the rovers are notoriously slow, so they take months to travel kilometres. So a drone certainly opens up all sorts of opportunities to explore, and I'm sure that the technology behind that is very interesting.
I was also interested in this whole idea of looking for microbes, etc., which has always been part of the sort of narrative around exploring Mars, and how the comparison with like a desert and on Earth, and how you get different deeper colors, etc., and what's causing that out in such a harsh environment, and the idea that that could be also happening on Mars with microbes that are really really tough little things that can sort of deal with the harsh environment, and that might be a source of study that could unlock a few things.
Well, yes, and I think we've been waiting, probably about 45 years now since the original Vikings landed for NASA to send back something that can actually detect signs of life, as opposed to experiments that will detect chemicals that relate to the signs of life. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. It'll be very exciting, and if we do find any evidence of life on Mars, that will be, I think, really mind-blowing.
And just finally, I guess it wasn't in the notes, but I was just thinking then that I guess there's this kind of reinvigorates this idea that you've got government-based exploration, I guess, happening here, or government-funded exploration, and then it seems to be happening simultaneously with the private sector, the Elon Musks of the world, etc. Wanting to find ways to get out into space with reusable rockets, going to Mars, doing all that sort of stuff. And it's interesting that I guess it's kind of a new era for the space industry, or whatever you want to call it, in that, it was predominantly a government-only industry at the outset, and now it seems to be, sprawling out with lots of players involved.
Oh, look, absolutely. And, I think it doesn't matter how you view it, the future of humanity eventually has to be in space. And this is the start of it, and it's very exciting. I think in the next 30 years, we will see routinely people living and working in space, and there'll be all sorts of opportunities to do that, from tourism through to resources, and through to pure exploration. And put those three things together, there will be real advances that allow us to go into space. But for those that think that this is some sort of flight of fancy, I think a lot of the technologies you see developed will have a huge positive impact on Earth.
Cool. Well, we might wrap it up there. And just on that note, obviously they're not doing it for nothing. There's a reason to do it, and there's always something of value in exploring other places and trying to get more of an understanding of what's out there.
Very true. And the one thing I will round off with, if you want to know what those advances will be that will benefit us here on Earth, is that in space you cannot waste anything. Everything has to be recycled, reused and repurposed. And I think you'll see those technologies come to our planet. And they're the sorts of things that will make our planet a better place to live again.